For the last exercise of this chapter, we're going to write a program that simulates shuffling a deck of cards. And we're going to do that using a two-dimensional array to represent the deck, where a row and a column will represent a suit and a denomination. So for example, if we start out with hearts as the first suit, then the position 0, 0 would be the 2 of hearts, assuming that aces are high, and so on and so forth through the 52 cards in the deck. So I'll explain the strategies and techniques more as we get started. What we're going to do is we're going to start with an upper level look at the program by looking at the code for main first. So what we're going to do is set up a couple of variables that represent the number of rows and columns. Now we're going to declare our array, like so. Then to initialize the deck, we're going to call a method called initDeck, which will set each array element to 0. Then we're going to call a method called shuffleDeck, which shuffles the deck using random number generation. And then finally, we'll display the deck by calling a method called displayDeck. So let's get started with our method definitions. First on the list is initDeck, and it will take a two-dimensional array as its parameter. And it's a very simple method. It will initialize each value in the deck to 0. So I'll just go ahead and write that out real quick. Like so. And that's it. I left out a void up here. Hang on. Our next method is displayDeck. Again, takes a two-dimensional array, and it displays the elements of the two-dimensional array. So I'm just going to copy the body right here, paste it in, and then the only line I have to change, besides lining things up a little bit better, is write a system out print. Turn this into a multi-statement body. And right here, add a blank line so that each row will be displayed on its own line, and close it. Now we're ready to talk about the shuffle deck method, and that's where all the work gets done. Same parameter. First thing I'm going to do is create a couple of variables for row and column. Those are going to be randomly generated. What we're going to do is we're going to start at card 1 and go through card 52. And we're going to randomly generate a row and column position. And then we're going to check to see if that position is equal to 0. If it is, then we're going to assign it a card value. So that, for example, 0, 0, the 2 of hearts, if that's equal to 0 and that's our first randomly generated element, will be set to card 1. So let's see how that works. We need a random number generator, so we'll set that up real quick. Now we're ready. So we have a loop that starts at card 1, goes through card 52, incrementing by 1 card each time. And here we generate the random number for a row. Remember, this is a suit. So we'll just use 4. That will be 0, 3. And here we'll use 13, which will be 0 through 12. Then we test. If that randomly generated element is equal to 0, set it to the card number, like so. Otherwise, we need to work through the array until we find an element that's 0. So that's what we're doing. We're generating another random number for the row and another random number for the column until its element value is 0. And then when it is, we drop out of the while loop and set it equal to the card. So that's how we handle the fact when we first generate random numbers that it's already been assigned a value. So we close the else, close the for, and close the body of the method. I may be offline a little bit. It's hard to tell. Nope, run online. Okay, so let's save the file. Clear the screen. Get rid of my testing. Compile it. Oops, I see what I did. Right here. When I'm typing and talking and thinking ahead at the same time, I make a few mistakes. So I forgot to specify the random number object. There we go. Well, let's try it again. Compile. And then run. And there's our deck. So the 52nd card is the 2 of hearts, assuming we're going hearts, diamonds, clubs, and spades. The order doesn't matter. Whatever suit you pick works fine. And then you can scan the list to make sure we haven't generated the same card number twice, but I know we haven't because that loop went 1 through 52. So again, what happens is that we randomly generate a row and column number. Then we test to see if that element is 0. If it is, that means it hasn't been assigned a card number yet, and we assign it right here. Otherwise, we set up a loop that generates another row and column number and then does that until it finds an element that's 0, until that statement becomes false. And then what it does, we assign a card to that element, and then we go back to the loop and go to the next card. So that's how that program works. And it is a bit of cleverness, I guess, but those are the kinds of techniques you'll learn as you gain experience with programming. So that wraps up our discussion of arrays. And in the next chapter, we're going to talk about 3 control structures that don't fit into the main set of control structures, but are very important. And that's the switch statement, the do-while loop, and the for each loop. And we'll talk about those next.